It's May 17th, 2013, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello and welcome to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. We're going old school this week, so it's me, your host, Chris Quinn, coming to you from Studio BT. We've got some noisy neighbors, but they won't be neighbors for too long. It's okay. I forgive you for that one. But I want to thank everyone. It's okay, Don. Everyone's going to realize it's you in a moment anyway. It's fine. But I want to thank everyone for tuning in, for downloading, for listening to us on WLPN 105.5 FM like you have been for the past, how long has it been, Serge? Has it been like 7 years? Past 7 years. So thank you to everyone there who's put up with us and the background noise and stuff like that for the past 7 years. And thanks to everyone who's been really submitting a lot of letters and emails, and I think we've got as much interaction with our listeners as ever. So thank you guys. No Mike this week, just me. So that's why I'm saying we're going old school. We do have an actual insiders roundtable, not coming from Studio B. That would be very old school. We do have that in the works, though. We're talking with Edmar about going down to Bridgeport and going real old school. I'm talking Pat's cheese, Italian beefs at 2 a.m, and maybe a hamburger heaven. Although I think that place burnt down, but we're going real old school. But anyway, why don't we just get right into it and start introducing our guests, our panel for this week. We're going to go in the order we always do, which is in the order of seniority, that being how many times you've been on the show. I think it's a pretty easy one. I think, no, it's Mr. Bichsel. I think you're the senior member of the panel. You can shake your head no all you want. I know can't wait. I mean, really what it is we just wanted to unmute your mic, so you're live. You're ready to go. How are you, Don? Good to see you.
I'm good. I thought that I'd only been on this thing once before. Does that make me senior twice, 3, 4?
Oh, come on.
I do want to be a part of the.
I think you're on two hands at this point.
I want to be. I want to go to the old school though. I can't wait to go back down to Edmarville.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be a lot of fun. What's new with you, man? I can see one thing that's new. You've never brought. Have you ever brought any beer on the show before?
I've brought beer in the past.
Never this much.
Never this much. But I had to make sure that I was fully liquefied with my Lagunitas hop water, my Heineken 00, my Guinness 0. Mm-hmm. This I stole from my wife, so I don't know what this is. Klosterhaler, grapefruit non-alcoholic, which just looks like
a Radler, right? It's like a grapefruit Radler, NA.
Looks like an orange soda.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes, it really does.
I've got a Lagunitas IPNA,
mm-hmm.
Which actually doesn't suck. And I have Liquid Death to wash it all down with.
Cool. Have you had all of those before?
I have had all of them. This is my entire second refrigerator now full of these, as I am on day 51 of the 100-day, how did I get roped into this?
Oh, it's 100 days? I thought it was 60 days.
No, it's 100 days. Oh, my God. 100 days of not drinking booze, which has been interesting over the past couple of months. I've been to CBC. I've been to Nashville. I went to a wine dinner in Napa last week, and then I had to go to the Toronado, where my friend came in and, of course, ordered Pliny. Mm-hmm. And then my other friend showed up, and she ordered Blind Pig.
Exercise and willpower, man.
And I drank two crappy German non-alc beers. I mean, fantastic German non-alc beers. Erdinger and I forgot the other one was, but yeah, 49 days to go. I'm not exactly sure how I celebrate coming out of this, but
Which of these is your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
well, out of the ones that I brought today, I've been drinking a lot of Athletic. I'm out of Athletic in the house. That's been kind of my replacement. I kind of like any of their lagers are good, but believe it or not, the Heineken 00 is my favorite because I have no idea how they recreated the skunkiness of it in a non-alc beer.
Well, you just need hops. You don't need any alcohol.
It doesn't finish as sweet as some of the other ones do. Some of them finish pretty sweet. So
I know some people really like the Guinness one.
It's good. Yeah, it actually, we'll pour that one in a little bit. If you haven't tried it, it's fantastic. It's a little sweet, but it pours exactly like a Guinness draft does. It's actually really good.
Nice. So, well, thanks for coming on.
For bringing all the fruit juice this week.
Yes, thanks for bringing all the fruit juice. I think, John, how many times have you been on, Pat?
I don't know. It's been 5 to 10.
Okay. Sorry, John.
Wow.
Whenever it's a tie, we go to in-house versus Zoom.
Sure, that's fine. I'm just happy to sit here.
Good. So, Mr. Pat Fahey, what's up, man? The Master Crusherone himself, just been crushing lately, right?
We got some low alcohol beers to drink tonight. So.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You can crush NAs, right?
I mean,
can you crush non-alcoholic stuff? Can you crush water? Can you crush?
Oh, absolutely.
Juice? Okay.
I don't know.
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. You're a master.
What I was gonna say is I don't know that NA stuff is the most crushable.
Right.
In part because of what Don was saying. Like, it's usually too sweet. Like a lot of it finishes kind of sweet, so it's not as drinkable as.
Well, we turn to you for this type of insight.
I'm glad I can deliver it.
Yeah.
Was this a part of the Master Crusherone test?
It was. They were like, how rank in terms of crushability different.
That's the part that you.
Beverages.
Isn't that the part that you added into
wrote that part.
Yeah, I kept hearing like, what's with this like giant section? There's a third day about crushability. I don't understand.
Specifically
but
of NA
they
beers.
said it was heavily weighted. So I guess I'll have to study. What's anything upcoming with you? Anything new that you wanted to talk about, or no?
I mean, about to leave Chicago. So,
oh, okay.
So that's exciting. We're my partner is moving her brewery down to Santa Fe, New Mexico. So after about a decade here, we're about to get up and head out of town. But
Your partner's leaving with you?
I know you wouldn't think so.
She's leaving town.
Oh, I thought it was just you leaving and she was staying.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought she was just leaving town, but I didn't know Pat knew.
She told me recently, and I was like, "Can I come?" And she said,
I'll think about it.
She said, "I'll think about it." So
I still think it's a ruse, and you're leaving and she's staying. But
I know that you just want to hang out with her, but
we're talking about Ms. Avery Swanson of Keeping Together Brewing.
Yes, indeed.
For those of you out there who are not in the know, now you know.
Now you know.
Yeah, so you guys are headed to Santa Fe, right?
Headed to sunny Santa Fe.
Wow.
Yeah, after 3 years up here and 10 days of sunlight total, she was like, I need...
Well, she's from Texas,
She's
right?
from Texas and has deep love for the Southwest and indulged me in coming to Chicago for a period of time. And
well, she's going deep into the Southwest now.
yes. It's Wild Westy out there for sure.
Right.
But we're excited for that.
I can't wait. I have a friend who moved to Texas, and I loved watching how quickly he took on the affectations of a Texan. I can't wait to see how long it'll take you to take on the affectations of someone from Santa Fe. Like how much silver and turquoise and stuff like that will you be
how
wearing?
Smothered will my burritos be? Very smothered. Like extremely
How
smothered.
much red chili will you put on to everything?
Not that much. Like I'm more of a green chili guy.
You're a
I
green
always
chili
go
guy.
Christmas because I like variety, but I am always like, that was a mistake.
Okay.
It's all about the green chili.
Okay. Well, we'll see. I want to see you next time I see you, even if it's here in Chicago. Bolo tie.
I'll see what
I know nothing about New Mexico, so I'm just going to pull out every kind of
every tried and true trope that you can
yes,
come up with. Yeah.
Exactly. Which I've done all of them now, so you're lucky.
I will bring you a bolo tie. Your very own.
That's good.
I don't know where you get those, but I assume that there are stores.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, awesome. Great to have you. Great to have you back. And good luck. And I'll see you before then. You're having a going away party.
Yeah, we're gonna
here.
Drink. We're gonna drink here before.
Not literally in this garage, but
hopefully not.
Maybe it'll move into the garage if it gets really crazy.
Yeah, that's when the party's going to get really good.
Right.
Say Don will come with all of his NA.
Just call it the VIP room.
Exactly.
It'll be the NA VIP room. It'll be great.
Exactly.
We weren't planning on that, but now I've got some ideas.
Not actually a VIP room.
I'll go to Binny's and like buy them out of Liars. You know, we'll be doing shots of like non-alcoholic tequila all night long.
Seed lip, just like
It'll be amazing.
straight down.
So I know that there's listeners right now who are sweating and tense because they're just waiting to hear Don any Rob Todd updates.
Don's falling apart.
Oh my god!
I don't know. They might have had a falling out. He's crying.
God, I almost spit up IPNA all over the place. So, no, it was quite sad actually. I wandered the streets late at night in Minneapolis, calling his name, and
Kind of shuffling.
He wouldn't respond. It's sadness in the world. Actually, I saw one or two Allegashians, but I didn't see the man himself, and I don't know what I'm going to do with myself now.
Well, I'm sure as soon as you do see him, everyone will know about it. That's the good thing.
Well, I'll come on here immediately and let you know.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Well, thank you for that update, even though I'm sure everyone out there, well, at least they know. It's better to know. You know, bad news, at least if you know what's what. My final guest is zooming in all the way from New Jersey, right?
Yes, sir.
Mr. John Holl. How are
Hello.
you? What's up with you?
Well. I'll tell you what's up with me in just a second. I want to go back to your theme song because I was listening to the lyrics and I was trying to decipher them. And do they say all we've ever wanted is to never be seen or heard from again?
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said, to never be heard or seen from again. Yeah, I think
that's a terrible message for a podcast where you want people to tune in. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to run your show.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So what I heard from Avery was that was your theme song for your improv comedy troupe.
Not true.
She just made that up.
Yes.
I would love for that to be true, though, and it's now canon.
Yes.
It's now canon.
I mean, I think you should just go with it.
Okay. No, I've told the truth. I mean, all right.
Or
then
for
that's
your
what it
stand-up
is.
comedy?
No, never done stand-up comedy. No.
She just lied to me.
She lied. She made it up. It's a good story. I mean, she's a creative person.
She might not be going to Santa Fe. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you go there and there's just nothing there.
I mean, it's a lovely song. Don't get me wrong, but the underlying message of we're never going to be heard from again, I for an audio medium, strikes me as the wrong message to put out there into the world.
It's a deep cut for all my fellow UID heads. That's all I'll say.
See, I think it's the opposite. I think that it allows you the openness to know that this could be it. So you're willing to say anything, knowing that this could be the last time.
Is that why you're drinking NA beer?
Yeah, it is. I'm going as close to the edge as possible. I'm going to see if I can go
staring into the void.
Insane. And I've come close in 51 days, let me tell you.
But wait, there's more that John has to say because he was going to talk about how he's doing. But before he did that, he wanted to talk about. He wanted to.
No, I wanted to talk about your show before I selflessly talked about myself. I'm great. I have a new book out that's called The Craft Brewery Cookbook, which came out last week, which I'm super excited about, and everybody should go buy copies of that.
Congratulations!
But more importantly, and probably most importantly, Andy Crouch and I brought back All About Beer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. That is most importantly.
That's news.
That is news.
Breaking news.
Tell me.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So
I actually tweeted
we launched
about it
about 3 weeks ago, and we were able to get the assets back from Daniel Bradford and Julie Johnson, who were the longtime owners of the magazine, who had sold it to another party. That didn't go so well, but the assets reverted back to them. We were able to work out a deal with them, and we brought All About Beer back online. And for those who don't know, it was a magazine that was founded in 1979. The media brand is older than Sierra Nevada. In fact, in issue 4 of the magazine, they teased Sierra Nevada opening up. So it's got some history. Michael Jackson spent most of his career writing for the magazine. We had great voices, a lot of just wonderful coverage up until when the magazine closed in 2019. But there's great digital assets and archives that go back all the way to the beginning, and so we were able to bring those back, and all of the social media handles at All About Beer are back to life. And now we're in the process of creating new content and working with writers again, and really telling the story of what's happening in beer these days. And I was the editor of the magazine from 2013 to 2017, and it was a job that I loved, and the chance to now own the magazine and to bring it back to life has been really special. So everybody should go check out allaboutbeer.com and see what we have going on. And if you like what you're doing, support us however you can, even just by reading, because the world needs more beer journalism.
I agree.
And me and Andy, we've been at it for a long time, and we're excited to bring it back.
Nice. So I will say to everyone who is listening out there, I've talked about All About Beer on the show probably years ago. It is my all-time favorite beer magazine, so that's great news.
Thank you.
And
Huge
I'm sorry, I didn't know that I was
congrats.
breaking news to you guys. I thought people knew about this.
I am under a rock.
I have not done a good job promoting this. So
No.
I'm going to have a conversation with HR tomorrow about my job performance.
Exactly.
Just me crying into a mirror.
Yeah, you'll have to reach out to me offline, as they say.
I will.
And I don't know. See if I don't know. I would love to hear more about it.
I'll tell you all
That's
about
great.
it, pal.
I would like
Awesome.
to know actually what was in episodes or the editions 1, 2, and 3 before Sierra Nevada, and how
Like,
boring
what
those
was
must
there?
have been. Like, what was there?
New
It was-
Albion.
It was all about like Europe and
It
crappy
was.
lagers.
That was actually
Oh.
how the magazine started. Was Mike and Bunny Bozak started the magazine in '79 because Mike Bozak walked into a beer store and noticed that there were 4 imports on the shelf, and he said, "Boy, this may be something. Maybe there's people who want to know about these 4 imports."
amazing.
They want to know all
And
about
that's how,
beer.
that's
four
how
of
the
them.
brand launched.
Pretty good.
It's going to be a 4-issue magazine, one about each of the beers, and then you'll know all about it.
And then Sierra
No,
Nevada came along,
the
and it was
very
about
first
5.
cover of the magazine. This is how much of a stretch that it was. Although I kind of love it, but the first issue of the magazine had a story about Paul Newman, because he was like a Formula driver, like an IndyCar driver, right? And he was on the Budweiser racing team.
Oh.
And so that was how they got Paul Newman on the cover of the magazine, and a story about Paul Newman because he was on the Budweiser racing team. I mean, it was a stretch, but by the end, and even today, I mean, it's beer touches so much, and it's nice to be able to tell those stories, and it's nice to be able to have those archives back online for people to see and to build upon it. So
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Look forward
Thank you very
to
much.
all the
I thought that's
guys
why
have
you
put
asked
out.
me to come on. I didn't know that I was like telling you about my life.
You know what? I appreciate that you think I have the foresight to look into it and then have people come on based on the topics and what's timely in their lives. I'll say that that's true. It makes for a good story, much like my old improv troupe's intro song, which I love so dearly.
Keep that one around.
Yeah. So hey, it's all legend building. So
Yeah, I'm actually looking up the archives right now, and I don't see anything about Christopher Quinn, Pat Fahey, or Donn Bichsel. So we're gonna have to work.
do you see your boy on there?
I see Rob Todd. A lot of Rob Todd.
You looked
there's
him
a
up
lot
first,
of
though,
Rob
didn't
Todd.
you?
I looked him up first. Actually, I have a picture of him right
You
here.
do. Oh my gosh.
Not only that, but Andy Crouch, my business partner, flew to CBC with Rob Todd and had a lot of time with him on
Don's
the plane.
leaving the room.
That's it.
Don, there is steam coming out of Don's ears
That's
right now.
unbelievable. That's not cool at all.
Hey man, don't hate the player, hate the game. You know.
Did he actually sit next to him on the plane?
I mean,
No,
maybe
no,
behind him.
but they boarded in Group 1 together.
Yeah, there you go.
Actually, I don't think Andy has Group 1, but either way, he forced his way on.
He was there. He saw him. He saw the back of his head in the distance. Certainly more than Don can say.
It's going to be terrible if someday Rob Todd actually listens to this show. It's going to be
Doubtful.
Got to count on that. That never happened.
God, it'll be
Doubtful.
it'll be so weird.
Did you guys know that Allagash has their own podcast now?
Oh.
Is it just Rob Todd all the time?
It's Rob Todd reading the list of people that he has restraining orders against.
Yeah.
And it's like your name over and over and over again. I don't even know what this Rob Todd joke is, but I'm just going to pile on because it feels like it's low-hanging fruit.
No, to know Don is to know that Don knows everybody.
He does.
And so when Don's talking, he talks about his life, and invariably he was just, canoodling with someone huge in the beer industry. And, I think the avatar for that has become Rob Todd.
Poor Rob Todd.
Poor Rob Todd.
Or Rob Todd.
So
But yeah, if you go to allaboutbeer.com, there's a lot of articles about Rob Todd.
there you go.
Great tie-in.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you. I'm just going to
You're a
keep bringing
pro.
it back to that. Yeah.
You're a pro, really.
Yeah.
Let's
We totally missed Hazy IPA and Brute IPA, or Brute IPA, I should say, when the magazine was dormant for a year or so.
Are you ever going to recover?
It's a shame.
We're gonna try. We've commissioned
The Dark Ages.
a whole series of articles on the history of Brute IPA. So
Good.
We'll get going on that again.
Okay. Hey, I'll
The beginning and end of Brit. You can cover the entire history, which is
in
great.
a paragraph.
It's rare that you get to cover the beginning and the end of something.
And now you're up to date.
I had Kim Sturdivant on my Drink Beer Think Beer podcast last summer, and just because I wanted to know what the creator of Brewed IPA, was thinking. And he's working at a new brewery called Pacifica, which is on the coast in California. And I said, do you have a Brewed IPA on tap? He said, no. And I said, do you have any plans to do it? He said, no. And that was the end of the conversation. Like he didn't want to keep it going. He doesn't, it was.
Here's what I will say this about Brewed IPA and a lot of these and cold
I love that I've
IPAs
hijacked this. Yeah.
and all this other stuff is it's not the beer's fault that everybody in the industry, especially around that time, was so rabid to jump on any trend and not be left, holding the bag for like the hazy IPA because if they weren't in on that fast enough, and everybody was just jumping on the next thing, and it wasn't this guy's fault that he made something and it was called Brewed IPA, or maybe he named it a Brewed IPA. It was that time, especially where everybody, it still happens, but not as bad as it was a couple of years ago, where just anything with IPA, people were just like jumping as hard as they can to like, all right, we're making a Brewed IPA too. What is it? I don't know. Have you ever had one? No. It's like, okay,
I
cool.
think that's still true, though, of what's happening with cold IPA.
I was going to say
now.
cold IPA just happened.
Right. I mean, I don't think it's...
And it's continuing to happen around us.
It's over, isn't it? Isn't it over?
I think cold
I don't
IPA
think
is-
it's over.
I think it's so. My question, and this has been a topic of conversation that I've been privy to, but when is hot IPA coming?
Yeah.
Doesn't sound good. It probably wouldn't be good, but like
I've got some good ideas about that one.
I bet you do.
I do.
Well, let's build out the recipe. What constitutes a hot IPA? Is it spice? Is it actual temperature?
I mean, when you think about cold IPA, it's like fermented colder. So just like ferment it hot,
No.
just wreck
no,
the beer.
No.
Just- No?
Serving temp. You serve it boiling, literally boiling, and then you have to let it cool down, and just so you don't hurt yourself while drinking it.
Like a hot bowl of ramen.
Exactly.
It comes out and you just got to blow into it.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know. I feel like there's an
so
opportunity though to just create a blonde ale and give people, if you're serving it boiling, give people hops in like a tea bag so that they can steep it themselves.
Exactly.
That's more of a service.
It's interactive.
That's more of a service trend, though. I mean,
right? You got to put.
It's a gimmick. It's a service gimmick. Much like a side pour.
Table side hopping. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, you could do the same thing with like smoked beers now. You just like put a little piece of wood on the side.
I mean, they already do that with cocktails.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Why
Yeah. Hot IPA.
Oh, guys,
I'm
done.
there for it with the
we're on to something here.
I don't know.
I think we just invented it.
It's a stretch.
Pat, you're the one who
I did not.
invented it.
I cannot take credit. I heard.
Nope.
It's gonna be the Santa Fe sensation.
Oh
exactly.
my God.
Exactly. It all goes back to Santa Fe and Pat Fahey when he
actually,
coined
here's the
the term
idea for
hot
it.
IPA.
You get a couple of plastic totes, you make a really good IPA, and you just put it out in the desert for like a month and a half.
Oh,
Yeah.
And then you bring it back in, you carb it up,
Yeah.
you
that'd
bottle.
be hot.
It's got to be
And
in
it's-
12-ounce bottles.
And it's really bad.
And it's hot.
and it's hot. And it's hot IPA.
But you tack IPA onto the end of the name, and it sells like hotcakes.
Exactly.
Hot IPA, hotcakes.
And the goal is for each one to be worse than the next.
And it would. It would.
Hot IPA, baby.
if you drink 10, you get your name written on the chalkboard in the tap room.
What you do, it's like a service gimmick because that's what you have to do, like the slow pour, the side pour, the boss pour. Now what you do is you take your IPA and you pour it into the top of the bar's coffee maker, and then it just drips out.
I figured you just nuke
burning
it.
hot.
You'd toss it to Chef Mike and just nuke it for 30 seconds.
But
and
then,
just-
you don't see the process. You don't see it
fair.
dripping down into your glass.
But I see it now. This is what brings back the Randall. You pour the hot IPA in through the Randall with whatever ingredients you've got in it. Oh, it's great. I can't wait for this.
It's true. I'm gonna have one.
Coincidentally, All About Beer wrote about the Randall when it first came out.
I bet it was a good article,
Randall,
too. Way
the
better than
enamel
this.
animal. All right, Pat. What beers have you been drinking lately that you've enjoyed?
So, I was just out at a brewery not too far outside of Chicago called Seeds with a Z. Wow, that was good. That was good. That was like beer opening ASMR, I think. But I was out at Seeds Brewery, and they're just outside of Michigan City, and they kind of focus on lagers and saison, and they throw in like some English mild just for good measure, and it's
What was that last one you said?
English mild.
Oh, okay.
I know. Have you heard of it?
No.
May is mild month.
I love
It's
that.
true.
But I've got a few of their beers here. It's really just one guy, Ryan Ziarko, making this beer, and he is killing it. He's making fantastic beer. So I'm drinking a little green bottle saison that he did. It's a little 4% alcohol mixed culture saison, and it is real tasty.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
For me, same as last week. I'm not going to try to pretend like I have a new beer that I'm excited about every week. It's the same beer that I was excited about last week that I'm excited about this week. We still have the fresh Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. It's going away quickly, which makes me very sad. But we have a pretty solid list, I think, going right now, and it's still my favorite thing that we have on.
How fresh is fresh?
I think at this point it's probably maybe 2 months old or a month and a half, or how old would it be? Do you think,
I thought
Pat?
the board said like early April. So
okay.
it's like 5 or 6 weeks.
Okay.
It's not bad.
Yeah. So when we had it, it was screaming fresh, but that beer holds up really well. So
It's almost like they know what they're doing.
right.
Since 1979.
1980.
Talked about first in All About Beer magazine.
1980.
That beer
Here's the
tastes a
thing.
little weird, man.
That article though had two things wrong in it. It was it was like a blind item of we're hearing reports of a new steam brewery opening up in Chino, California. So it was wrong on 2 counts, but still it got the name right. So
Okay, that's good.
Wait, were there Chinos before somebody said that, or was Chinos invented?
There is a Chino,
in All About
California.
Beer?
That's about 100 miles away from Chico, California.
Which is where Dockers come from.
I mean, I love that they were just talking about like we got a new steam brewery.
A
Like
new
that's
steam
so
brewery.
emblematic of the time. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah,
I love that.
no, it's just it's kind of fun. We've gotten much better at accuracy since then.
Hot IPAs should only come from steam breweries.
It does,
Hot
it does
IPAs
make sense.
makes
Only
sense,
come
right?
from Santa Fe.
Yeah, only.
So I think,
might
Don,
beat us
we
to the
know
punch.
what you've been drinking lately.
A lot of it, actually.
Yeah, especially the athletic stuff you said you liked. How about you, John? Anything you've had lately that you've been digging?
Yeah, I've been really getting back into West Coast IPAs. Like really good, classically made West Coast IPAs.
Okay.
And I've had a couple that stand out. I had one from New Realm, so that's Mitch Steele, who obviously knows his way around that style.
Yep.
Wayfinder, the inventors of the cold IPA, have
Okay.
also been doing some West Coast IPAs as well that I've been digging. And I had this written down beforehand, and I feel like I'm going to send Don over the edge. But Allagash Allagash of all places has a West Coast IPA these days that's called Swiftly. And damn if it's not like an old school throwback. Like it really sort of tastes like 2006 in the best possible way. It's got this like malt, like caramel malt, and like a little bit of nuttiness to it, and burnt citrus peel, and this really sharp pine. It's yeah. I see you got it up on your computer right there, and like look at the color on that. It's like burnished. It's really nice. So I've been digging that quite a bit in the last week or so, but yeah, a lot of West Coast IPAs and also a lot of non-alcoholics. And the Crux Fermentation Project has their hazy IPA that's pretty all right. But I'll agree with Don that the Heineken 0.0, I keep that in the fridge, and it's a decent go-to. That hits that placebo effect if I'm looking for it, and it tastes like a Heineken. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I kind of joke a little bit when I say that they replicated the skunk taste and smell, but they kind of did.
They did. It tastes like a Heineken without.
It really does.
Yeah.
I think the sad thing about it is that fact that I don't think that Heineken really wants it tasting like that, because if you go overseas, it doesn't taste like that. But it is.
I don't know. I have to imagine that it is such a. It's so expected by American drinkers that even if they, completely got rid of the bottles and only went to cans, or got rid of the skunk, that people would turn away from it. I think that there are a majority of Heineken drinkers in the U.S. who are not craft drinkers who see it as a feature, not a flaw.
I completely agree.
I completely agree. Before it goes too far, I did reach out directly to my mother on this one just to confirm that I was right. But when you dropped Mitch Steele's name, I did want to throw in that my mother knows his mother-in-law. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Your mother knows his mother-in-law.
Yeah,
Not only does Don know everyone, but Don's mom also knows everyone.
runs in the family.
He knows other people's moms.
Yeah, it's true.
That's how deep
impressive.
this goes.
It's impressive, Don.
Yeah.
Oh,
In the same book group. Wow, that's impressive.
Wow.
The text to my mom was, didn't you tell me that you know someone who knows Mitch Steele, brewer who used to be at Stone? And she wrote, yes, his mother-in-law is in my book group.
Nice. They should be see if they'll read all about beer.
Well, I'm hoping that someday they'll invite Rob Todd into the book club.
Exactly. Or his mom. You mean his mom?
Rob Todd's
No,
mom.
his wife's mom. Rob Todd's wife's mom is in your mom's book club. Perfect. Okay.
God, I feel terrible for anybody that tunes in, and it's like, when am I going to hear anything?
Well, why don't we start?
This is great.
Well, why don't we start? So
Do you have listeners on this show?
we're a 1%er, baby. Someone told me.
At this point in time, no. So we can say, and just like what you were saying about the song, this is going to be the last episode. This is perfect. So
yeah.
Now we can say anything because there's nobody listening.
All right.
Everyone says that, but I tell you, people.
I'm just teasing. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes. Don't worry.
I like that we're 40 minutes in and just finally past the introductions.
You've been on this show before,
always
dude.
goes.
It takes at least 20 to 40 minutes every time. That's just how it's the format of the show. It's good. People fast forward for the first 20 to 30 minutes, listen to the topic.
They're like, oh, they're still doing this, and they just keep going.
It's going to be great next week. My mom's going to go to a book group, and somebody's going to say, "Oh my God, your son was on."
Yeah, exactly.
Talking about book group.
Yeah,
Rich Steele's mother-in-law, Judy.
Exactly.
Your son-in-law's famous.
Exactly.
Good shout out.
Was anybody at CBC?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah. You were one of the many people who got COVID there.
I did not get COVID. I'm immune. I don't get COVID.
Oh, no, not you. No, I know two other people who got it.
No, I honestly, I didn't get it. I mean, it's. I have been a part of multiple super spreader events. I threw a super spreader event. I hosted the Chicago super spreader event actually last year. No, I haven't been able to catch it.
I'm sorry.
I've been trying, but
that was two other people. That was other people who were supposed to be on the show and couldn't make it because they came back and had COVID.
No COVID for me.
So for those in attendance, what was your overview? It was like the first time for it to be kind of. I mean, they had it last year, but I think it was kind of weird last year, and then it was.
It was.
Yeah. So what was it like this year?
It was definitely a super spreader. I mean, there's no hiding that fact. People kept remarking how quote unquote normal everything felt, and that in itself felt forced. I don't know what everybody was expecting, to happen when everybody got together. But that was the underlying thread. We're at bars, we're at breweries. You're running into people that you haven't seen in 2 years, and all everybody wants to talk about is like how normal this feels again. And it was just kind of jarring because it sort of kept taking me out of the moment of just having fun and being like, oh yeah, there is a global pandemic still raging around us right now. It was just kind of like a weird thing. But I do think overall, people seem to enjoy the seminars. It was nice seeing the expo floor packed in the way that it was. It seemed like companies were doing good business, which I hope means good things for the industry overall. I didn't see quite as many breweries in planning that I have in years past. But I think a lot of those smaller breweries are spending their time going to the local guild,
right? Like their state
conferences, their state conferences, because it's more cost effective for them. So, I mean, overall, like it did feel, somewhat normal.
I remember. So what was on the showroom floor? Was there like one? Was there a theme, or was there something that was kind of that you noticed time and again? I do remember from I forget what year it was, but there was one year where there was like cool ships all over the place on the trade show floor, where everyone was trying to sell a cool ship to everybody. That was, I think, a one and done thing for the trade show. But then I know there was another year where there was like massive brew houses that were set up on there because everyone was expanding and stuff like that. Was there like kind of a theme to the trade show, or was it just kind of a little bit of everything?
What's interesting, I'm curious about Don's thought on this, but the people who usually spend like a lot of money for a big show seem to dial it back a little bit. People who used to get end caps or have big things hanging from the ceilings, reserve their money this time around. And I don't know if that's because the last CBC was 7 months ago in Denver, and they didn't have the budget this time around, or they're just being a little bit more conservative. and I don't know about like a theme, but what I did notice was what was missing.
Mm-hmm.
And at CBCs in years past, there always seemed to be a lot of weird vendors that you didn't quite understand why they were there, you know,
Okay.
or like hot sauce companies, or, you know, like ancillary things that were not necessarily part of the beer industry, or that would be of huge interest to brewers that were there, or startups. There wasn't a lot of like small, quirky startups in the same numbers that I recall seeing in the past.
Kind of like people who are on almost like the trade show tour or the trade show route. Like they just like, this was part of what they did, was they just went to different trade shows and stuff like that. Interesting. Yeah, there were always some kind of weird things where you're like just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
I guess you're here for a reason, but
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. How about you, Don? What did you hit the trade room for?
Yeah,
Trade show
so
floor?
we're a part of it with Vermont Information Processing, and so a couple of things, John. Great points. Actually, the one thing I actually wanted to jump on right away was you're exactly right about those kind of extra things that kind of don't connect or don't fit in, and I think that if there's anything that was showing that the kind of burst of the bubble was starting in craft beers when that stuff isn't there anymore, because of the fact that they were all the ones that were hanging on to the excitement, and people had money to spend, so now why not spend it on hot sauce? And they were giving away hot sauce actually at the CBC in Denver as part of the gift bags, ironically.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting. That's such a great observation. But I did want to go back to the point about it feeling normal. I actually felt like it didn't feel normal. I felt like Denver felt more normal, and it had a lot to do with the city. And I know, and talking to Bart Watson a little bit about this, I asked him about the choices of cities and why they choose certain places. And I was actually picking to see what was coming up next with Nashville and Vegas and some of the kind of ones coming forward.
And it was in Minneapolis.
In Minneapolis, yeah, in Minneapolis. And I asked him about Minneapolis because the one thing that didn't feel normal.
And Bart Watson is
Bart Watson,
name drop. Come on,
The chief economist.
Dr. Bart Watson, the chief economist of the Brewers Association.
Thank you.
Was the fact that a little bit like downtown Chicago is on certain nights, the city was completely barren. I mean, there was nobody out and about during the day. It was very quiet. It was very weird walking around at night and just how quiet it was, because of the fact that the city doesn't have a lot of people coming back downtown. My sister lives up there, and she used to work at Target right downtown, and all those people that generally are downtown during the days, and there's a lot of, the hustle and the bustle, it just wasn't there during the week. So for me, I just felt like it was a very strange feeling because of the fact that things were very spread out. And with Denver, everything's very close proximity. There's people hanging out in the bars and restaurants that are really close. And though that city was a little bit lacking the normal 9-to-5ers walking around, because it's so condensed, or the activities were, it didn't feel as if there wasn't anybody around. But
everyone knows that. Everybody in the beer industry knows that city so well, just because.
GABF.
GABF is there, and so you probably have kind of people who get into their routine when they're there. But I would think it would be different when you're in Minneapolis. So,
but the events once you got there, they did feel normal. I mean, there was no COVID. COVID didn't exist. There was no attempts at masking or social distancing. So I can see why it turned into a super spreader event.
Oh yeah,
and then
people started dropping like flies that the day before it ended, and then in the week or so afterwards, for sure.
Yeah, it was. But the trade show, I agree with you on the trade show that a lot of people, and Chris, to your point when you were saying about people doing the end caps and whether or not they were spending money, or John, if you brought it up, with Vermont Information Processing and our partnership with them, there was a definite look at the budgets and the fact that we had just done this. So we definitely scaled back the size of the booth. We went to one of the sides instead of one of the big end caps. There's definitely cost involved in that. We did get a lot of business. I think a lot of the ancillary services were there, and I think a lot of those were getting business. I think a lot of the large providers of equipment, I don't know what kind of sales they were getting done. And I do agree, I didn't see a lot of that startup mentality that you normally see, and it kind of think it's indicative of what's going on right now. I think that there's probably not a lot of people that are or should be opening up breweries right now in the United States until we kind of shake out of wherever we are right now.
It's interesting. I don't know how much we want to get into the weeds of like, conferences and all of that, but you brought up, so it's Nashville next year, and then it's Vegas the year after, and then it's Indianapolis. But people are excited about Nashville. When the Craft Brewers Conference was there a couple of years ago, that was like that was a fun time. And it was pre-COVID, so, it was doubly fun. I've heard in Minneapolis, a lot of folks who are wary about Vegas and going there and seeing potential problems on the horizon with, what that city represents. And
overindulgence, you mean, or
and sending, brewers who don't always have the best control in certain situations into a place like that. Somebody's gonna lose their fermenter money on the roulette tables.
Well, I'm kind of surprised people aren't bringing up. I mean, I'm a little confused as to why they're going right back to Nashville. It seemed like Nashville was just a couple of years ago.
I think it was 2016.
Yeah, and
2017.
But that was kind of my question actually that I started talking to Bart about. Was that I was surprised at that, and he said that there's just a limited number of places where they can hold it or that are big enough for it, and I guess that's probably why a Vegas is going to happen. It just, I guess, I would like to have seen it not going right back to Nashville. I mean, this is kind of so selfish in my thoughts about these conferences. I don't go so much to generate business as I do to see everybody, maintain those relationships that are already existing. And plus, it's always great to see some and explore some of these new cities and the beer scene in each one of them and meet some of the individual brewers. So, but I do agree Vegas doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, though I will be there from day 1 till day 5. I will have a suite at the Caesars, hopefully with the piano and, doing some card counting. So if anybody wants to go, Rob Todd will be staying there as well.
Somewhere. He'll be in the city.
He'll be playing the piano.
Playing. Yeah.
Bless you.
Oh, great. And you'll be lounging atop it.
Oh, 100%.
Singing.
Yes.
Got it.
Rose
As he
in mouth.
plays. Exactly. All right. I would pay to see that. Now that's something I'd pay to see.
I would go to see it. I don't know if I'd pay to see it.
I would pay to see it. I'd pay to see it.
Is it like it's like a Vegas pay-per-view? You can sell the rights to it. You can live stream it into bars around the country who get the package.
Yeah.
I mean, has CBC been in like Brooklyn or New York City or
no? Because they can't afford it.
Yeah, that's probably a huge part of it.
I mean, the Javits alone is the Javits Convention Center is a terrible place to have a convention center in New York. But it's too expensive.
Yeah.
The hotels, you can't get the deals. And for a lot of these breweries, it's New York and LA would be outside of their budgets.
Yeah, I can tell you one thing. I mean, I go to probably every third CBC maybe, and I will not be going to Vegas. I just have no interest in going to Vegas and being with people who are just like, jonesing to get to the tables and yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's fine. Like, do your thing. That's cool.
Yeah.
But that's just not me.
It'll be the year
Gonna
that
let all
sinks
of
the
our hot
craft beer
futures
industry.
ride.
Exactly.
That is it. I mean, that's the excitement about it. Is that's when it all comes burning to the ground. That's it. I mean, I'm going to go, prepaid hotel, prepaid flight, just my driver's license and like $10,000 in cash, and that's it.
But then he'll get the hot hand, and then you'll come back owning 7 top 50 breweries. You'll be playing for pink slips.
He'll
essentially.
buy Allagash.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but
you're
then
going to need a cool ship to bring out all your chips.
Oh, there you are.
And that'll be what brings cool ships back to the floor. All right.
Exactly.
Full circle.
All right. So good times then at CBC.
There was a lot of people there. It was impressive.
There was a lot of COVID.
Yeah, there was a lot of COVID, but there was a lot of people. The trade show was definitely very, very busy. So
very cool. Did any of you guys go to any of the talks and stuff like that? Was there any subject matter that was interesting to you?
I think this is like a softball built for me. I actually hosted a talk, and I was actually pleasantly surprised by the amount of people that came to the one that we hosted. But then also some of the others I went to, the one thing was the excitement about the talks. And John, I think you talked about that. Most of the talks that I tried to go to were either over full or overflowing. I think that a lot of the times that we go to CBC, and to the point about Vegas, is anybody going to go to the talks, or will they just be on the tables or by the pool? Everybody that was there to actually learn and go to the seminars. I mean, I was very impressed by how many people showed up to all of them, and walking the trade show booth. People that were there were very engaged.
What were some of the talks? Do you remember any of the talks that you wanted to go to?
There was a bunch that I wanted to go to, but they were all later on in the week. I flew in on a Monday and I flew back out on a Wednesday morning. So
okay.
I had a COVID scare in my house, not from any of my people, but some of my people, i.e. my children and wife, got sent home from school because they had COVID breaks out at school. So they shut down classes. So my stay in Minnesota was just 2 days.
Got it.
Which was plenty.
To Don's point though, there was the talks that I saw as I was walking through the rooms and through the convention center. There was overflow at pretty much all of the rooms, and we hosted, along with Pro Brewer, a non-alcoholic panel that had Bill from Athletic and Keith from Syria and Garrett Oliver from Brooklyn Brewery.
Bill from Athletic did a talk.
He was on a panel.
Oh, I didn't know he does panels.
He did a sit.
Yeah, he was there sitting next to the other guys. It was great. And but we had a small little room that turned into a mini super spreader but we probably had about 200 people who were there to hear about non-alcoholic beer, which, as I was moderating this panel, I said, it's amazing to me because 3 years ago, nobody would have shown up to listen to even, the top names in beer talk about this category. And now, we were turning people away at the door, and we're going to put the audio out soon enough, but it was really kind of incredible to see that the interest for education is still there. That, you think about some of these things as like parties or spending spree trips or whatever, but that education, that's still the thread that is bringing people together.
Aren't non-alc beers right now the cold IPA or the black IPA of right now? It seems like, obviously,
I wouldn't say it's the black IPA. I don't think NA is going away.
No, NA is absolutely not.
But it is interesting because everybody's jumping on this bandwagon, and maybe I'm just because I'm drinking them right now. But it seems like everybody's coming up with one, and maybe Chris, you can talk about the availability of them. But it is pretty amazing that every brewery that I see now is doing one. If they haven't already tried to do a seltzer, everybody's doing an NA. And I was talking to Bill from Athletic. Athletic Brewing is actually a client of ours. And I'm always impressed. And I told him that not drinking for this spell of this thing that I'm doing with my wife and our friends is so much easier now than it was 6 months ago, than it would have been 6 months before that or a year before that. And I actually, last time I saw Bill, I told him that I was amazed by how much just their brand has changed the perception. And there's a comedian out there, which is so great. He said, I forget the name of who he says it, but he says something along the lines of, everybody asks when you say I'm not drinking, they're like, oh my God, are you dying? Is there something wrong with you? He's like, they don't say those things about mayonnaise. They don't say, oh my God, you don't eat mayonnaise? It's like, is there something wrong with you? He's like, but because of Athletic Brewing and all these different brands now, like not drinking is suddenly over the last 6 months or 12 months, it's kind of one of those things. And not only is everybody doing it, but there's so many brands. I've got these 6 of them that are in the table right in front of me right now.
So let me, so you guys, or Pat, I think you said that NA wasn't going away, and everyone kind of concurred. So I'm kind of thinking, most recently the big explosion with seltzer, how it just absolutely exploded, and then everybody jumped to do a seltzer, and now we have what looks like to be, we're in the middle of a big kind of contraction where really the big players who were there first are still in a commanding role, and there might be a few heavily backed brands that kind of came in after the fact and are doing well, but but it doesn't look like the seltzer is for most places what's kind of killing it. Probably some few exceptions. Do you think that with NA that it could play the same? And this is, I guess, for everyone. Is everyone going to have an NA, or is there enough? Is it going to kind of everyone's going to try to have their NA be one of the NAs, and then it's going to kind of settle down to a few of them?
I'm not sure. But what I've always looked to is you look to Europe, even like a decade ago in Europe, I can't remember exactly what the figure is, but I think it's something like 20% of their beer market is NA beer. And Europe has a much more established, historically speaking, beer culture than we do here. It's one of those things that I think didn't catch on for a long time here, but now that it is starting to, I think we're only going to see it grow and become more prominent. And as it has grown, one of the things to Donn's point about it becoming easier in recent years, it's not just about more people making them. It's about the technology getting better. And so that people are able to make better NA beers. I think of what was available for NA beer 5 years ago, 3 years ago, and it's nothing compared to what we have today. So I think as that technology gets better and as more people try to do it and it becomes more widely available, it's going to be a category that's here to stay. I don't think it's going to be...
It's not going to be everyone has an IPA, everybody has an NA.
I don't think so because it is still very expensive to do it well. If you want to just... And I don't... What I have had from various breweries doing NA beers, Donn kind of laid out his list of people doing it, but the vast majority that he has sitting here on the table are global breweries.
Yeah. And I was just pulling this up. I pulled up this picture from the Tornado the other day where it was very painful not to drink alcoholic beers. But I drank a Bitburger 00 and then I drank an Erdinger. So it was interesting. Those were the two choices that were available, at the Tornado. But I think what's going to stop this is, bars like the Tornado and bars like the Beer Temple, they're not going to need to carry 12 of these. They're going to carry 2. There's not going to be 12 IPAs like you normally have. You're going to have one NA beer or two NA beers. And to Pat's point, it is very expensive to do it well. It's not easy to do this well. And some of the ones, and I'm going to rip on one of them later when I look up the name of it, a brand that I really like, actually, I forgot the kind of cool kid brand from Windy City Distributing. They've got a non-alc beer, and it was the maltiest, sweetest mess I've ever had. It was just undrinkable. So there's very few of them that do it well, and the Europeans do it very, very well.
So there's two things, right? With non-alcoholics, what I'm seeing, even with my own drinking, and I was talking to a friend of mine, Matt Kierkegaard, who was saying that NA beers have become his third beer of the night. So it's not like you are just drinking totally NAs like Donn is right now for this program. You can switch back and forth and to make it just part of your drinking experience. And I think that if Tornado had 4 different kinds of NAs that actually tasted good, that would keep me at the bar a little bit longer. Because I would have a Pliny and then maybe I'd have an Athletic and then I'd have something else and go from there where I can stay and keep the conversations going. So I don't think we have to think about it as, we're either drinking NAs or we're not drinking NAs. I think they can be...
You're just drinking beer.
100%.
Yeah, we're just drinking beer. And so I think the places that get that and understand that and offer variety, especially as all of us, who have been drinking beer for 20, 30, 40 years, are getting older now. The mornings are more difficult and NAs play a part in that. The other part, though, and we're talking about, making it well. This panel, all 3 of the brewers that were up on the panel also talked about making it correct. And it's not enough for a brewer, especially if they're trying to put this stuff in cans or bottles. they all stress the importance of tunnel pasteurization.
Totally.
That is the only way that you can safely make those beers and put them out into market. And that if you are a brewer that is doing an NA and not doing that, you should stop immediately until you get one. Because, Keith Villa was not hiding or mincing his words. He was like, somebody will get listeria. Somebody will get some sort of pathogen and die. Because somebody is messed up.
And why is that?
Without the alcohol in it, stuff can grow in it a lot.
Right.
It's a lot less shelf stable from a bacterial perspective.
Of course.
And actually, I'm going to piggyback on that because that was another thing that I was kind of thinking about, or another thing that I think has been accelerating it in the U.S. is the proliferation of beverages with cannabis in them. You have people that are making beer adjacent beverages, or trying to make cannabis beverages that are like beer flavored. And because of current regulations, they can't have any alcohol in them. And so they're having to invest in getting better at making NA beers. And Keith is doing NA beers from Syria.
Syria, yeah.
That basically are just like the un-THC'd versions of his cannabis beverages. And I think that too is contributing to just this higher level of quality in what people are making in the NA space.
But it's also just the growth and legalization of marijuana as well, that if people want to, have gummies or tinctures or whatever they're doing, an NA beer, you're not adding more vices to it and you're getting something that tastes familiar. So I think, I don't know if it'll be 20% like in Europe, but I don't think this category is going anyplace anytime soon. And I think if smaller brewers can unlock it and, can keep stuff fresh and pasteurize it the right way, I will totally drink it in somebody's tap room. If I see it on offer.
It's completely doing numbers wise what every category does in the United States, and every category in the United States is dominated by 3 players or 4 players at the most that dominate every single category in the United States. It's the same thing here. It's like Athletic is gigantic and Heineken 00 is gigantic, and then you've got some of the leftovers from years before in the Sharps that are still up there. But there's only a couple of players that are really grabbing an awful lot of sales here. And I think it goes to the thing that there's only so many of them and that are going to fit into the shelf spaces. And there's only so many of them that are going to be kind of carried on the bars, and only so many of them that the distributors are going to carry. Because that's the second point, is that the distributors aren't going to have 5 or 6 of these in their books. They're going to offer 1 or 2 of them.
Sure.
What do you guys think of that?
You want my honest opinion? First of all, I opened it up, and just like Heineken, I immediately got a huge whiff of skunkiness. It's very skunky. I don't like it at all. Personally,
to me, it hits a lot of the same points as Heineken. It's a little bit.
It doesn't have any bitterness to it at all.
Heineken's not terribly bitter. Heineken does have. So what I will say is it's a little bit wordier. Like it's got a little bit of like extra malt character, and it's lacking. Like one thing that Heineken does have is it does have a little bit of yeast character. Like there's usually a little bit of like banana isoamyl to it, and I don't get, well, maybe a little bit, but I do look forward to a day of crushable NA beers because, like, depending upon whether people are doing like arrested fermentation or if they're doing like a distillation type process to remove the alcohol, in a lot of cases you do end up with something that's a little bit sweeter and a little bit like wordier. Like it has some of those like under fermented characteristics to them that, for me, keep it from being super drinkable. I think I have seen some people do like more hop forward IPAs or even hazy IPAs that are NA that you've got so much other flavor going on that it kind of covers up some of those elements. And I think it just like in making standard beer, like it's hard to make a really good, really clean lager. I haven't had much in the NA space where I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, that's like a really great clean
I should
beer.
try some of the IPAs maybe. I find myself when I'm not drinking but want to have something going to more. Well, I've said it, before, like those Mars botanical, something dry, something with some bite and some complexity to it. I've gravitated to them more than the NA stuff, but that just be what I'm looking for.
I have thought similarly. Like, I don't know that this is what I think personally. I don't think that this is necessarily where the market is going to go.
Yeah, that's same with me.
But like I have thought this with like gluten-free beers and with NA beers. It's like, you might be better off playing within kind of what's available to you within that medium. Like if you're doing a gluten-free beer, do something with grains that don't have gluten, that have their own interesting characteristics, and lean into that. But I think most companies are like, no, I want to make this taste as close to normal beer as possible, which is very challenging.
Right.
And I do think that probably large segment of customers out there, that is what they're looking for. So personally, I'd love to see people be like, hey, I got to make something NA. I'm not going to try to make it taste like a light lager. I'm going to make something that's interesting in its own right.
I think you can do that in your tap room. I think it's pretty difficult to do that with anything that you're going to push out there commercially.
Totally, 100%
You just don't have enough money to be able to educate people
create
on
a
what
new
you're,
segment.
Yeah, push something out there. But I do agree with you that it would be more interesting if people were doing that, especially in their tap rooms. It seems like everybody now feels like they have to make everything that has to be commercially sold at a liquor store or a grocery store now. And I think that you're right. And going back to the Edmar and Mars Brewing, I do like what they do as far as their botanicals. They do sell it out there themselves and self-distribute it. But I think that doing that in their tap rooms instead of having to carry somebody else's non-alc is very smart.
Yeah, and I mean, that's, to me, I like to equate it to when I'm going to a vegetarian restaurant, I get a dish that might be naturally, quote unquote, vegetarian, rather than getting the, you got to have the vegan buffalo wings. It's like, you know what? No, if I want a buffalo wing, I'm just going to have. Yeah. But to me, it's not that stark, but I get a little bit of that here.
Idea.
Yeah, it's the same idea. Like, I don't need an NA lager. I'll have a lager if I want it, but I would love to have something that I can go to. So I'm going to keep trying them. I haven't found one yet. I was hoping. I've heard a lot of really good things about the Guinness, and I had a pretty good one in Dublin. But that one out of the can, just, I don't know. That one tastes weird.
It's
to
sweet.
me.
It's very sweet.
And it's a little wordy.
Yeah,
right.
It's very sweet. But it is interesting back to like the fake chicken and stuff like that. It's almost like it's designed for quitters. It's kind of like these beers are, because they're not stretching boundaries. They're making them familiar for people that used to drink beer or are taking a break from beer. And they're making vegetarian food familiar for people that used to eat the chicken, so.
Right. For those cravings, so you don't have to give in.
That's exactly right.
Makes sense. All right. Do we need, I'm going to get a little bit of a refresh, just take a few minutes and then come back and talk a bit more and then see where it goes. Is that okay, everyone? Okay.
It's your show, so.
I know, but I'm looking, I want to, John, you okay? You hanging in there? Okay,
I'll
cool.
hang in.
Okay, cool. All right, then let's take 5 minutes and we'll come back with more of the insights.
Are you going to play? Are you going to play John's favorite song?
Yeah, right now.
Great.
Welcome back to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. I am your host, Chris Quinn, and I am joined by Pat Fahey and Donn Bichsel. And unfortunately, Mr. John Holl had to leave us. There was unfortunately a COVID scare, so he is.
I think that's what happens when you make fun of your theme song.
That's right.
That was it. The COVID gods came from him, and this was his last appearance.
Well, for now. But check him out on allaboutbeer.com or whatever website it is. So moving on. You okay, Don? You all right? Don, am I gonna make you cry laughing twice in one episode?
Oh, it's incredible.
Okay.
I mean, you were a stand-up comic.
Right, exactly. I was a stand-up comic, which is where my love for music comes from. My love for all things music. Okay. Do you guys know? This is we're going to do a little quiz. This next segment is going to start out as a quiz. Do you know that this is Chicago Craft Beer Week. We were right in it, in the middle of it. That's why I had you guys on, because it is Chicago Craft Beer Week. Did either of you know that?
I found out on Sunday, and I was surprised.
Yeah.
Is it
Okay.
Chicago Craft Beer Week or is it Illinois?
Oh,
Craft
yeah,
Beer
Illinois Craft Beer Week.
It's Illinois Craft Beer. And the only reason why I knew is because I saw some tweet about beer under glass being not so great, and I linked to it. And I'm not saying that beer under glass wasn't great because I wasn't there, but that's what the tweet said. And I linked to it.
Why didn't the tweeter like it?
They didn't like it because of access to bathrooms. I think it was a bathroom problem.
Sounds like every beer event ever.
but I linked to it, and then I thought to myself, "Oh my God, I am missing Chicago Craft Beer Week," and I couldn't believe it. And I went into a quiet place and I cried over the fact that I'm missing Chicago Craft Beer Week.
So what did you do for Chicago Craft Beer Week 2019?
Nothing.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So
I didn't do much. And to be honest, even back when I was working for breweries of different size and different places, I've never been a huge fan of them in general. I think there's a couple of key events that do very well, and there's way too many of them, and nobody cares and hasn't cared for a very, very long time. So it's not surprising that.
So can let's talk about it like for real. I mean, I think the three of us have some pretty good insight into it. Why do you think that nobody seems to? I'm not saying nobody does. Nobody seems to. Nobody that I have talked to cares about it at all, if they're even aware of it. And I have talked to many people in the industry and been like, "Do you know it's Illinois Craft Beer Week?" And they'd say, "No."
I think.
Are you doing anything? No.
I think part of it is just that we're still kind of living in this like post-COVID life, or like John just had to dip out because of a COVID emergency. Like, we're still living in COVID times, and beer weeks inherently revolve around events. And so I think we're still in a weird place when it comes to events. And so it's hard to gauge the success or lack of success of, something that's based on events in this current environment.
Yeah, no, but
I think that's part of it, at least.
I would add that I thought it was really slowing down pre-COVID. That beer weeks and beer months and beer years, there was just seemed to be just an exhaustion of too many of them, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that if you go back 10 years and maybe even more, kind of when these beer weeks started, there would just be dozens of events, not hundreds of events. So it's impossible to go to all of them. So you've got a limited number of people that are actually very passionate about it. So it's hard to spread them out. And then when you take them, it's no longer about Chicago or Philadelphia or Boston. It's now about the entire state. I mean, it's kind of a little bit too much. And I think it just gets watered down. And I think that they can still be successful, but I think that they've got to be more around events like Beer Under Glass, or a culmination of multiple breweries coming together, and just limited. I mean, there's just too much of it. So.
Yeah, I think limited, like very kind of. Well, I guess there's two ways to do it, and I guess it if it's going to be a thing, I think it could probably go in two directions. But I don't know if it's necessarily both. But the two ways I thought it could be is like, are we still trying to raise awareness for craft beer, or then the other thing could be then cater to loyalists and really kind of cement them, or give them something like to really excite them, which I think is probably the direction it should go. And then again, I own like a boutique-y, a place that caters to them. So that's obviously what I would say. But
yeah, but don't you find it weird that you own a boutique beer bar and you didn't know about Illinois United States Craft Beer Week?
Well, I think that is because
you're not doing events. You're not doing events.
Right. So we're not doing anything. Okay. I literally did not know about it. I think at this time last week, I don't think I knew about Craft Beer Week.
But it seems really weird to me because back when I was on the supplier game, I would you'd be at the very top of my list of, you go over there, you get a cool event. at the beer temple. You
Right.
know, you go to the Green Lady and you do an event there. You go to the Hop Leaf and Delilah's and all the other places. You know, those would be at the top of your list. The fact that you don't have an event is kind of, I think, a little telling. That
I think there's a few things about that. I think a friend of the show, Zach Rotello from the Olympic Tavern, put it pretty well. He put out a tweet yesterday that said, it was, quote, ICBW brings together craft breweries, bars, restaurants, retailers, and you, our craft beer fans. And he said, no, wait, that was from the 2018 website. The current has 0 invite for retail partners that have supported Illinois Beer, IL Craft Beer Week, and their brewery members, is what he put. So I think there's a little bit of just like, WTF going on there. So that's not where I was going to eventually get there, but I think that is one of the reasons why someone like the Beer Temple or Delilah's, or I don't know if like anybody else is doing it. I would guess probably not. Is because I don't think we were really. I don't think we're the focal point of what the guild is trying to put it forward, or else they would reach out to us.
Once again, to your point, like, what is the goal of one of these? Are you trying to
to raise money for the guilds of the various states?
Well, then there you go.
I'm really not being a smartass. That really generally is what it is about.
Sure. And then I don't want to be part of that.
Yeah. So
which is fine.
And
that's not me hating on the guild.
No,
it's like that's your own thing.
Guild either.
It's like it's not my. They don't represent me, so I'm not going to do a fundraiser for them.
Well, the hardest thing is the fact that I think the guild's caught in a really difficult situation, because the fact that as they grew over the years here and they did such an amazing job getting their membership up in the state, some of the outlying breweries that were in the suburbs were like, hey, what about us? So then it became more inclusive. And then some of the ones in the middle of the state, hey, how about us? And then the ones in the southern state, hey, about us? And so it became less about condensing it and making it, at 5 days. Don't you remember? It suddenly became 16 days.
Yeah.
It was like 16 days. It just became... And to their credit, they tried to do something for everybody. But I think in trying to do something for everybody, it just kind of waters it down. And then the brewers, and then I know that they've gone through some changes here, at least in Illinois, as far as some of the leadership. And I know they've got some of the long-term people are still there. But back to Pat's point is where I'm trying to get to. It's got to be almost impossible to plan something then like this and get the word out, because of the fact that you don't know if the city's going to shut down tomorrow. So
there's that. And then also I do think, beyond them just being a vehicle for increasing visibility of a guild, like there does have to be something beyond that. And Chris, to what you were talking about, like, is this, are we trying to raise awareness of craft beer or breweries that are out there? I think in some places that's still a thing that could work. In Chicago, like, I could be wrong, and obviously we're like steeped in beer industry, but there are so many breweries here, and it's been like there's been such a push for so long that, like, if you were gonna get into craft beer, and you've heard of it by now. Well, I would think.
Well, it better be Beer Week every single week if all these breweries are going to make it. So it's they don't need just a week; they need it every single week of the year and 3 to 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think really because you bring up a pretty good point, like, Don, when people are saying, well, what about us? What about us? If you start having it be where every brewery is doing something for Craft Beer Week, then to make it special at all, there has to be, there's just not enough people to go around to go to everybody's event, which is kind of what was happening maybe, 2017 or something like that, where it was just starting
further back.
Yeah, even further back. Yeah, where it was just there were too many lame takeovers, too many and I don't blame some of the bigger breweries who are like, oh boy, I've got 17 events I've got to do, and I've got to make all my retail partners happy and stuff like that. You have to almost do just like a few, just beer under glass level things, just like big events. And maybe a couple retailers or breweries can pull off something big. But yeah, I mean, at the same time now, I mean, it would almost be, if I had like a big event that I wanted to pull here, I would wait till after Craft Beer Week, because it doesn't seem like a retailer, and this is not where I was intending to go with this conversation, but it doesn't seem like that's what they don't want my involvement in Craft Beer Week, so I would just wait and do it another time.
I just don't know how many whale beers there are to be able to drive that many people into an event. You know, those are the things that drive them in, or the personalities. You know, like the Rob Todds that come to town for Chicago Craft Beer Week.
Exactly.
Well, and I think that there are positive elements to celebrating like all that Illinois has to offer, but to your point of being like, okay, so when it was for the breweries in the city, like the suburban breweries wanted in, and then outstate breweries wanted in, it becomes one of those things where it's like, if you try to be something to everyone, you end up not being something for anyone. Like, you're not able to, it's not focused enough that it ends up serving anyone really well. It just kind of like sort of serves everybody, but not in a real way.
And now I feel bad for like the Illinois Brewers Guild and some of the other guilds. Like, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. It doesn't come
seriously?
back. It doesn't become like, hey, well, you know what? Now Naperville, you go do your own thing, and you know, Crystal Lake, you do your own thing. Chicago's going to close the borders only to Chicago breweries.
You know, I'm not here to give advice to I don't want to even begin to try to solve that sort of issue, but like, I feel like it would almost be better to have like hey, you know, in May, we're going to have Chicago Craft Beer Week. And then in October, we're going to do events in Chicago that celebrate breweries from outstate Illinois. Like, do something where it allows you to be focused on, because truly, to both of your guys' points, I think where you kind of lose steam is like, you have a finite number of consumers that want to go to these events.
100%.
And then you have so many events that the consumers are just spread too thin across them. You do much better when you've got like, okay, even if you have to say like, you know what, X, Y, and Z brewery from outstate Illinois, like, we're not going to do just one event for each one of you. We're going to say, hey, let's do a Southern Illinois brewery tap takeover at this place. But by like combining those into one thing, you maybe are able to get enough consumers in the door that you throw like a really cool event that gets people excited and allows them to remember all of those places.
And that's the other thing, is that Illinois Craft Beer Week has become about Illinois craft beer, which, I mean, the granddaddy and still the best of them all is Philadelphia Beer Week, and that was not about Philadelphia or Pennsylvania beer.
And that's why it was great.
It was amazing because, I mean, I remember I walked into Monk's and Frank Bone, Jean Vanois, and Armand were all there to have an event at the same time. You like that name drop?
Name dropping was amazing. Incredible. Golf cup.
Don has never been so proud of you.
I know.
Just incredible.
But they were all there. I mean, imagine that. Now, that is incredibly special. Now, I think we could do something like that here. I was just thinking, I was chuckling before because I think we could have something where it's like Donn Bichsel presents a night of Rob Todd, where you just come in, you're wearing a tux, and Pat's playing the piano, just kind of accompanying it behind you, and you're saying, this other time, and I'll pull up the text right now to prove that it's real.
It's got to be Andrew Tater. Tater's got to do it. Tater's got the full cutout. He's got to come in.
Yeah,
be the guy.
And
that
you
does
just
that.
regale everyone with your stories of everyone, really.
But I do think that that's a great point. Is that in the old days, when there weren't so many breweries, when you had Chicago Craft Beer Week, it was not a celebration of Chicago beer. It was a celebration of beer in Chicago.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
And so it was like, okay, we're going to like, Allagash is going to do events. We're going to do events with cool breweries from Europe. Like, we're trying to bring the best of beer to this city rather than having it be like, at this point, you got like 250 breweries in the Chicago metro area. You want to do Chicago Craft Beer Week and not celebrate them? Like, that's that's a hard
People
thing to
like
kind of contend
Allagash
with.
and Great Lakes and Bell's and Founders played huge roles in Chicago craft beer.
Totally.
And I think they should be part of the craft beer week.
Well,
But
I would say that my favorite craft beer week outside of Philly's, which I won't try to fight and say that this one's better, was Cleveland's for a while. Cleveland had this run of craft beer weeks because John Lane has his annual event, and John Lane owns a group of restaurants called the Winking Lizard in and around the Cleveland area. And John would have his annual meeting where he has all the suppliers come into town, all the beer suppliers from around the world, around the country, to unveil what is going to be sold at his restaurants the next year and say, hey, this is how we did this year with all the brands. This is what we've picked for our menus for next year. And then he rolled it into, well, while you're in town, let's throw Cleveland Craft Beer Week. And so there was several years, and it burnt itself out after a number of years, but there were several years that everybody in beer was there. I mean, you had Sam Calagione was there, and Jim Cook was there.
You were
Greg
there.
Cook was there. I, of course, was there. But all the, when there was not as many breweries, obviously, in Cleveland were there. And then once it kind of became flooded with local breweries, and they were no longer the focus of having all the kind of quote unquote cool kids fly in from all over the place, it kind of burnt itself out too. At Cleveland Craft Beer Week, I don't even know if it's happening, but it's not what it used to be because of the fact that it wasn't about beer anymore. It was just about Cleveland. So
Yeah, and I would argue too, and this is kind of
it's an interesting point.
this is a detour from the topic of beer weeks, but I would argue that kind of like the proliferation of local breweries has also kind of, or just the proliferation of the number of breweries has also sort of reduced the mystique of the cool kid. Like I think about, and I think about it all the time looking at the shelves here at Beer Temple and looking at brands where it's like, oh my God, like 5 years ago, this is a beer that if you could get it in was a limit one bottle per person sort of thing. And it sits on the shelf now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think part of it is just purely a factor of the number of breweries in the country and the fact that there is so much beer out there that there isn't as much mystique or like cool. There, like things are not as limited.
Well, and
it can't be.
And I want to be careful that I don't pick on a brewery that we don't work with, so I'll just pick on one that we work with.
Perfect.
That way, Jason and Brad at Spiteful will just get mad at me. But but it's like the excitement is like, so Spiteful has a brewery and they have their own tap room. I don't need to go to Spiteful's event at the Beer Temple.
Right.
I can just go to Spiteful Brewing for their event.
Right.
So I mean,
Right.
that's really what it is. Is that it goes back to what I said before? Is that every week needs to be a beer week at these places. Unless you bring them all together so you can see them all in one place, like Beer Under Glass. I don't see really the point.
Yeah, it almost needs to be like I don't know if it would be not like a Chamber of Commerce thing versus like a state-run guild or something that's putting it on. But I do think you want to make it as kind of big and far-reaching as possible, and hope that rising tide kind of lifts all ships. Or maybe it just doesn't need to be a thing anymore.
Maybe it doesn't need to be a thing
Yeah, maybe
anymore.
it just doesn't need to be a thing.
Because I do think like I think that is a great point, is that like if you're trying to celebrate a local brewery with an event, it's like just go to their tap room.
Yep.
Like you can go and have their carefully curated experience at their place any time of the year. And in the past, the big draw to like, let's say Spiteful was going to come and do, I'm not going to pick on Spiteful, because they're not one of I don't have clients like you do. But let's say that Spiteful was going to do an event at Beer Temple, like one of the potential draws to bring people out to something where it's like, okay, you've got a local brewery. I could go see them anytime at their tap room, but I'm going to go to this event because they're maybe releasing a really cool beer at this event. At this point in time, like so many breweries are releasing so many beers all the time that the idea of like going to a place for a limited release isn't even really a thing that needs to exist anymore.
What excites people here the most is when someone from most often is when someone from not around here has something that is special or limited, and that can be something like a very special Sierra Nevada Pale Ale or a very fresh Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, or it could be, this is, wow, we haven't had a fresh drop of De La Seine in 2 years, and it's back. Like, that's exciting. Let's all kind of celebrate that, and by celebrate I mean let's drink the beer. Like, that's really cool. That's the sort of stuff that I've noticed gets our employees the most excited, and I think that kind of trickles down, because I do think there is a connection with the people who enjoy coming here. I think they like coming here because they like the same sort of stuff that we do. So at least in our little niche, that's the stuff that excites us the most, and it's probably for that reason. It's not that we're trying to diss on the special annual release that comes out of whatever local brewery there is. It's just that, those beers are around.
For those, you can and you should go get that at that place. And honestly, they probably appreciate you getting it at that place because they're going to derive much higher margins from it. But like when I look at Beer Temple, like even, you look at the list here, I guess 20 taps at any given time, like usually like half or so of them are local. But when you look at the other half of them, it is like not that the ones that are local are not carefully selected, but it is like a well-curated celebration of beer from around the world. And I do think that that is part of what drives customers here. And I do think that that is part of when Lime brought the Shelton portfolio back into this market, people that are Beer Temple consumers are really like enthusiastic about beer. And they're like, oh my God, I haven't been able to get De La Seine for 3 years. We blew through 4 kegs of Terrace Bulba in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like that. And that is the kind of thing that like, I do think that there is still room for that sort of thing, but it is harder to celebrate local breweries at this point because you should be doing that already at their places of business, like not in a specific week, but like Donn said, hopefully for them, 3 to 5 days out of the week, 52 weeks out of the year.
Sure. Or just like, you can certainly celebrate them by throwing your hard-earned dollars at wherever they
100%
are on draft. And I'm sure that's also very much appreciated. Of course, they would love for you to come and visit them and see kind of, what they have to offer. I think maybe that's what it is. There's such a strong local scene that I think a lot of the other people have been pushed out. And when I say pushed out, that has a connotation like people like they don't want anybody else there, but part of it is like, well, why wouldn't a local brewery want to be part of their state's, their city's craft beer week? And that doesn't leave room for anything else. And then it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work then.
100%.
Yeah.
And singular events aren't very exciting. I mean, I think back at some of the fun things I've been a part of. I mean, one of the best things when I was working with Dogfish Head was the events that we did with Dogfish Head, Three Floyds, and Stone. We did these events for an entire summer, and this goes back 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, but back then there was, at a time that, you had to bring back, 3 breweries together to get the excitement. I mean, that was 14 years ago. So now I don't think that any of those breweries could get the excitement just as a standalone. So I think you need to go back to that. You need to lean in on other breweries to be able to generate the excitement and everybody bringing in something different. But I think what I really wanted to pivot back to is that I kind of feel bad for the Illinois Brewers Guild, and not them in particular, but all brewers guilds, because the United States needs to have thriving brewers guilds so that they can do the lobbying work for small breweries in the United States to be able to compete up against the big breweries and the large distributors that have got the ears and eventual mouths of the politicians that write all the laws that govern how they do work. So these brewers guilds, we need to support them. You know what I mean? I don't want to be dissing on their events, but hopefully they can come up with creative ways to still generate income so they can still do a lot of the good work that they do that that allows for this thriving, growing, and as we're talking about, massive amount of breweries here that maybe has watered down the excitement of doing these beer weeks.
One of the things that Zach was going to talk about when he came on, if he came on, he just couldn't make it.
He never drives. You know what it is?
What?
He never drives down from Rockford to come and see me. And
he came down once to be on, but to be fair, I think I talked to him at like 1 p.m. this afternoon when I saw that we were going to talk about it, and I saw that he'd put that out, and I was talking with somebody else who had mentioned Zach, so I reached out to him, and he said he was going to try to do it, but like everybody who has a restaurant, he was having some staffing issues.
He's probably cleaning his draft lines or making some pottery or
selling people growlers. I know he's big into making growlers legal. Very happy that now that that's happened. No, I know he was going to talk about, I think Thursday is the day of action where the guild has put for the big event for Thursday is the day of action is to push craft beer lovers to talk to their legislators to allow a universal, countrywide, I guess, direct to consumer law that they're trying to push, which didn't find a carve out for retailers. I guess only suppliers could do it too. Kind of like growlers. I guess retailers just couldn't quite do it right. Now they don't want them to. They want them to. It's just they don't trust them with the quality. Just like with growlers. So I know Zach was very happy to see that they were pushing for that. Yeah, I mean, I will say one thing. I love the craft breweries in this state, but sadly, I don't trust the guild to represent my interests. And more so, I feel as the space gets more crowded, it seems to me, and I would love for someone to come on and dissuade me from this. Instead of pushing up against the big guys, they're looking at retailers as competitors. And I feel like the guild has gone after retailers as competitors more than retailers have started seeing breweries as competitors. So right now, I mean, I look at the guild with kind of like apprehension. Like, okay, this is what you're pushing for. Every time you push for something, it seems to not really affect the big guys at all, and it does affect retailers who push craft. So that's what I see the guild. And I won't say, I mean, you guys don't have to say anything, but I do see some nodding heads, so I will say, Anyway.
And you know that I'm always going to jump in on some of this stuff, but I think I do think, and I will jump in on this too, is the fact that I think that that's the Brewers Guild's job. You know what I mean? Their job is
supposed to look out for themselves.
Yeah, they got to look out for themselves. I mean, but I do agree that, and I know that Zach has always been a big proponent of trying to push for this. That I think that they would get a lot more support if they had the retailers on their side as well. But I think that sometimes the goals obviously don't align. But
they just don't sometimes, which is fine, which is totally fine.
Well, and I look at something like that, and I think it, like, obviously, first and foremost, the guild needs to represent its members, and primarily it's there to represent breweries. But also, I do think that maybe it's short-sighted to not also think about other people that represent breweries, which I would lump craft-centric retailers in to that group. So I don't know. Whenever you deal with trying to change laws, it's always complicated, and there's always going to be some people that are left out.
Some things are going to make it in, and some things aren't.
Yeah. Right. It is funny though that you could make it a more restrictive law to only allow you to do something. I
didn't realize that the goal was to only allow breweries to ship and to specifically not allow retailers also to be able to ship direct to consumer. It's interesting.
It's a supplier. It's direct supplier to consumer, not based on certain types of licensing or something like that. So anyway, we'll save that for another time.
Yeah,
you know what? I take it back.
That'll be another show.
I take it back. You know what? There's nothing.
So far.
There's nothing else I have to say about that. So there's a few more things we could talk about, but I think we're pretty much done. Did you see that? Just last little thing. Do you see Spencer's calling it quits after 8 years?
It doesn't fully surprise me. It makes me a little bit sad. I shouldn't even say a little bit. It makes me sad to see.
Yeah, it makes me sad.
But I don't. It doesn't surprise me. Don's trying to get another beverage or something.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for another non-alc. This Lagunitas hoppy refresher right now is doing it for me.
You know, it's a great use cases for Aperol spritzes, which is off the menu for you right now. But
yeah, I if anything, I think because of maybe what I saw them as something that beer was a kind of not a passion, but a kind of ends to a means, and the means is to, serve God through work and all that sort of stuff. When you talk about the Trappist order, I don't think that the Trappists necessarily are drawn to beer, as some people may think. There's many Trappist orders here in the States, and they do all sorts of stuff. They do woodworking and furniture making, and they do cheeses and all sorts of stuff.
Last time I looked, or back when I used to look at these sorts of things, I want to say there's about 180 or 190 Trappist monasteries in the world, and 13 of them make beer.
Right.
So
it isn't like inherent to them. No. So I think it just shows that it was not viable, and if they could spend that same amount of time and money and be more profitable elsewhere, they will. And I think it does say something for at least that type of beer here and now. Obviously, it'd be awesome if we could have a U.S. Trappist brewery that was making great stuff. But
I think a big part of it is it's a marketing. Honestly, it's a marketing issue at the end of the day. And some of the articles about the closure cite as much. When you look at what has driven sort of the mystique of Trappist beer over the years, at least over here in the U.S., it is an import. It's an imported beer, commands a premium price point, and it generally falls into kind of this limited set of categories of traditional Belgian styles, even though, you go back about 10 years and there were 7 Trappist breweries, 6 of which were in Belgium, the other one being in the Netherlands, just
right
across the border. So I think when people that are into that sort of type of beer, when they think about that, they often think about it in kind of the terms of an imported Belgian-esque brand. I know that Spencer was they launched with sort of a Belgian blonde kind of style, but they dabbled in doing stouts and IPAs because they're we're in America and we should try to. And I think that they found themselves in a tough spot where it's they weren't an import brand, but they still were kind of trying to sit in that price point territory, and just kind of found themselves squeezed there as imports in the last 5 years or so have become less of a component of the American beer landscape. So
absolutely. I completely agree. And it is, like you said, it is still a bummer to see.
Total bummer. I mean, it was, I still remember when they launched how cool it was being somebody who had studied the history of Trappist breweries elsewhere to be oh my God, we've got one here. I never made it out there. And now I guess I never will. Mm-hmm. And that sucks because I had friends that went out there and had amazing experiences visiting Spencer. I would have loved to see it. I think it was a really cool thing for beer in the States. But from a commercial viability standpoint, I think it also makes sense that it's not.
Yep. So, farewell to Spencer. I was just thinking we have some on the shelf. We should probably crack some, pour a little out, and bring in some more and just hold on to it. And just when it's gone, it's gone. So if anyone wants to try it, that would, I guess now will be the time. One final thing I wanted to comment on, or just allow us to discuss or talk about a little bit, is the sudden death of a Chicago beer man, just a pillar, really, of old school Chicago beer, which is Jonathan Cutler, the original head brewer at Peace, who it was I think the brew pub to go to in Chicago, and just really seemed to touch so many people in this industry. I've only met Cutler a few times and hung out with him a few times. I can't say that I knew him personally very well, but his was certainly a name that you would just hear again and again and again and again, just having his kind of fingerprint all over the industry. So I think it was only, the least I could do or we could do is just to comment on his passing. And I think, Don, there was something you wanted to say about that?
Yeah, I think that it's as we've all grown in this industry, and we're all a very close-knit community, not just here in Chicago, but obviously the brewing community across the United States and pretty much across the world. Jonathan came from the Matt Brindleson Brewing School, arguably one of the best brewers in the country, if not a wider path in the world. And losing Barnaby from Three Floyds recently was a very heavy blow to the community, and losing Jonathan Cutler is very heavy-hearted thinking about it. And I have one story that I'll tell that Sam, when I was working for Dogfish Head, was doing a talk at we were downtown, maybe the Hyatt. And I don't remember if it was for CBC or National Beer Wholesalers Association, which I think is which it was for. And Sam sent me on a mission, and he sent me on a mission to pick up some beer to be able to pass out at his talk. And I got into a cab, and we were downtown, and I took that cab, and I went directly over into Bucktown, and I met up with our friend Jonathan, and he gave me growlers of his barley wine, and that I then took back down to the convention site so Sam from Dogfish Head could pour that out as his example of a great beer. And so I always remember it, and I always laughed about it when I saw Jonathan at Dark Lord Days or at Peace or anywhere around town, that I just love the fact that Sam had anybody's beer that he could have chosen to hand out to the distributors of America during his talk, but he chose to send me to go meet up with Jonathan to grab growlers of his beer. So Chicago is definitely going to miss him. I'm going to miss him. The community is going to miss him. One of the best brewers that Chicago has ever known and seen.
Absolutely. And one of the cool things is a lot of the beers that Jonathan Cutler created, award-winning beers. I mean, some of the most heavily awarded beers in the country, literally, are still being made and are still available at Peace. So it is cool that you can still taste his creations, because those are his recipes and on the system that he kind of dialed in and that he taught the current brewer at Peace how to create, and they're still delicious. So he is still making, his beers are still available to be enjoyed. So kind of makes me think maybe I should go and have some of his beers, have some of that Hefeweizen, man. That Hefeweizen's
Dunkelweizen.
Yeah, maybe it's the Dunkelweizen I'm thinking.
I think he did both, but
yeah,
I always loved that beer.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I always got the wheat beer that was there. So, all right. Well, sorry to end it on that kind of a note, but just I I don't know what else to say about that. Just how it has to end sometimes. I want to thank my guests, including John, who hopefully he's doing okay. Mr. The Master Crusherone, and the most connected man in beer, Mr. Donn Bichsel. Soon to be probably the most connected man in NA beer. If the amount of bottles sitting on the table is any indication of that.
Four down during the show, maybe 5.
Yeah, and look at you. You're still,
I can drive home. This is great. Now whether or not I'll still need a burrito, I'm not sure, but.
Right. I mean, the local late night taco stands of the city are suffering, Don.
Yeah, they might go out of
Why don't you think about them sometimes? Well, thank you guys. It's been great having both of you. I genuinely enjoy sitting down to these with you both. And Pat, it's sad to think that this might be the last time for a while we sit down like this for a show.
I'll be back.
That's what everyone
Chicago,
says.
I mean, that's true. I'm
That's what
going to go
everybody
there and
says.
it's going to be sunny. I'm going to be like, never coming back.
Never.
But
Right. I was supposed to be in Chicago for 5 years. This Memorial Day, it'll be 20 years I've been here. So, but anyway, best of luck
Appreciate
to
it.
you and to the whole Crusherone family.
the whole family out there.
The whole family that you have. And yeah, I'm sure you'll be on the show in some form or another. I'll make you.
I look forward to it.
Well, thank you. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone. We will see you next week with more of the Beer Temple podcast. So long.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we